Welcome to the Digital Manufacturer Podcast, the frontline source for digitizing your operations to grow your business. In this week's episode of the Digital Manufacturer, we meet some of the Rubik team to discuss the importance of using data and analytics to accelerate your business.
The possibilities are endless. If you genuinely, what you can achieve with AI and ML is amazing. It is always going to grow. It is that world of possibilities, but it's the data you feed into it that is really gonna deliver you that success.
How we match customer requirements with the technology we provide.
It's about how do you connect operators to managers to management. And I think that's about working with operators to create easy interfaces, putting the right foundational systems in, and then building that kind of data layer that gives really interesting views to management to help them take businesses in the right direction.
I'm your host, Mark Flynn, and let's dive into today's episode. Up first is Rubik's Solution Director, Lawrence Andrews, who is here to talk about the innovative ways we solve the problems and challenges that manufacturing companies face today. Lawrence Andrews, you're very welcome to the Digital Manufacturer Podcast. I wonder if you might kick off by giving an introduction to yourself, your role within Rubik, what you see as our main differentiator and the value we provide to our clients.
Sure. So my role within Rubik is Solutions Director. So what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, it's about finding innovative ways to solve the problems and the challenges that our customers face right now. Because anything we do with technology is judged on the impact that we can have in the here and now. And building from that, then looking at how the technology landscape is developing and has developed over the last few years. What new things can we do to help move businesses on their digital transformation journey in a kind of practical manner? Let's also look forward and think, how can we take the right steps to get towards a much more exciting vision of the future for these businesses and the customers we work for.
Yeah. So if I was to paraphrase, you are the guy that does all the complex designs and matches customer requirements up with the technology that we provide. What is your favorite manufacturing business?
So I think I really enjoy going in helping food manufacturers because there's some interesting challenges. There's a highly regulated industry. There's a lot of compliance that the businesses need to adhere to, both for the facilities overall, but also individual processes within the overall manufacturing process. And actually, there's quite an interesting challenge there around how you manage those types of processes, those quality and compliance processes, alongside what you consider to be more typical kind of manufacturing execution and manufacturing operations. Because actually, you can end up having two worlds running side by side. So thinking about how you converge those two worlds is a really interesting challenge and why I spend quite a lot of time thinking about.
And I've heard that you've also been known to turn up at a manufacturing site early in the morning to walk the floor and work with the operatives to understand the business processes. Explain to me why you find that valuable. Why is it important to get down and dirty and into operations when it comes to designing a software solution?
Yeah, you have to see it. So, you can sit in a meeting room, you can have stakeholder interviews, and you'll talk to overall management, or you'll perhaps talk to production management, and you can get an idea of the processes that the business are trying to implement across their operation, but you don't really get an understanding of how the business actually operates. So we've found getting on the floor, seeing how the operators are working is incredibly valuable. Just, the little things they do, little things someone might do at a particular station outside of, for example, a system they're using, might be scribbling just a tiny thing on a bit of paper or get a job picking out a calculator. These are all workarounds and processes that the individual operators have built to make their jobs easier. Well, the role of technology is to provide them the facility where they don't need to do that. And you only really ever understand that when you're watching people. And also not just watching them, but asking them, how is this working for you? What is the thing that takes your time? What's the thing that annoys you?
And maybe learning a trick or two yourself about how things are done. And it's fair to say, like, you and I have worked together for a number of years now, and also before Rubik. And like, if I were to characterize your focus in your previous years and now, it's always been around kind of usability of software applications, software tools. Explain to me how important it is when it comes to getting a software tool to work correctly in your organization, how important it is to focus on the user, the usability, and the adoption.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, my background for a number of years, I worked at delivering kind of web platforms for kind of consumer markets. So enterprise businesses, targeting consumer market. And those industries and those businesses are at the forefront of customer experience, user experience, particularly digital customer experience. So yeah, how in the sort of digital realm can you create amazing experiences which allow people to connect with your brand, but also buy from your brand? And that's all about making it enjoyable and easy. And I think sometimes when you look at enterprise software, now you can look at I think one of the reasons that SaaS software was such a big disruptor to traditional software, aside from being a lot lower cost and not requiring infrastructure, was its usability, because what they were doing is they were applying those sorts of user-centric design principles to software. Now, I still think lots of software still has a usability problem. And also, by the way, it's not just about usability, it's about branding, because if something looks nice and it feels nice, people enjoy using it more, even if the fundamental experience is the same. So I think some of those principles can and should be applied to more softwares, more technologies. And I suppose when we look at the sorts of businesses that we operate in, so manufacturing, construction, engineering, they actually rely, and rightly so, on quite specific software. So industry-focused software. And that industry-focused software hasn't necessarily gone down or hasn't been through that growth and evolution in terms of usability and look and feel. So I'm always thinking about how we can bring something like that to those industries to disrupt, and also, but not just disrupt, but provide some of the benefits that other industries have seen from adopting those principles.
Yeah, most of the software systems that we replace or upgrade that are incumbent in many of our customers are very operationally focused. There's lots of grays, lots of input boxes, errors that are hard to understand, big screens, big form fields, not very usable or intuitive at all. And I think often as part of the business case for encouraging our customers to upgrade their systems and go for a new, modern, fresh feel is much about the usability factor as it is about also making sure that their next generation of operatives, who are the younger generation coming through, used to the Instagrams, used to working on their phones, used to modern, intuitive interfaces, find their technology easy to use and therefore hit the ground running at a faster rate and ultimately stay. So I think that usability piece is key. It's as much about making it fun and enjoyable to use as it is about collecting the right information, correct?
And you can also understand why systems become complicated, because all systems start with the right intentions of providing functions that are easy to use, but over time people want something new and that gets added in, and you add more and more in to the point at which something becomes incredibly complex from a feature set perspective, which becomes incredibly hard to turn into an easy to use, enjoyable experience. But if you look at that in its totality, then you can say, well, actually, some of this might not be required, but actually we can just think of better models to be able to manage that functionality and access and use it. And again, with some of the technologies that are available today that perhaps weren't available when some of these software platforms were built, it's actually quite easy. It really is quite easy and low cost to build custom interfaces. So businesses can start to think, well, okay, well, I've got backbone foundational systems, but that doesn't mean that I can't now create custom interfaces which are specific to my business, to particular operations of my business, to try and achieve that goal of being easy to use and enjoyable. Because I think that's what we're always aiming for when we're looking at how we can use technology to drive improvement.
And if you could do any role at any of our manufacturing, engineering, construction clients, what role would it be and why?
Well, I think I'm creating a new role in some of the businesses we work in. So I think, and again, coming back to the fact that the barrier to entry around technology in terms of complexity and cost is reduced so significantly. There's so much people can do that they don't know they can do, which will create a huge benefit to the business. So I think with the right, obviously, backing and buy-in from management teams within, for example, a manufacturing business, I would create a little kind of digital innovation team, whereas I would work with operators to put in place systems and, I guess, progressively transform systems and IT estates within these business from the point of view of the users out, because I think that would look in two ways. So I think it's about how do you connect operators to managers to management. And I think that's about, working with operators to create easy interfaces, putting the right foundational systems in, and then building that kind of data layer that gives really interesting views to management to help them take businesses in the right direction and to be able to clearly focus on what they need to be focusing on to get the most out of their existing assets.
Really key point, actually, because we spend a lot of our time working alongside like lean management consultants, being the digital arm to a number of the projects that they're trying to implement. And I think you're right, the opportunity for many organizations, once they get past the drudgery of manual operations and pushing paper around, the next level up there, and from a technology perspective, is how do we empower your people who know where the problems are, who know where the opportunities are, to work with a digital team to produce low-code applications or whatever it may be in a quick fashion, trial those, work out whether or not they work and push them to the production systems. And if they don't work, go back to the drawing board and look to innovate.
I couldn't agree more with that. I think if we look at kind of lean manufacturing principles and processes that have been in place in factories, for decades, it is about working, and it is that creativity about trying to identify the problems and thinking about innovative ways to solve it. The reality is the innovative ways to solve problems, for the most part these days, is intelligent use of data and technology. Now, if you don't have the tools to be able to take action in that context and be able to, like you say, test something, learn, iterate, if you don't have the tools to do that, then there's a whole huge amount of benefit and potential opportunity that isn't available to you. So I think, connecting the world of lean and technology and data is, again, something I think about how can we bring those worlds together, because I think that would create a lot of power to businesses if they leverage both those things properly.
So, grand picture then, what do you think will be the key to the future of manufacturing? So, if we think about the West, there's challenges around access to and cost of labor, access to and cost of innovation, access to and cost of supply chain, all of which has been in many ways dominated by the East. But given manufacturing now, I suppose in the West, is having much more of a resurgence in response. What do you think is the key to the future of manufacturing?
Well, I suppose where possible, trying to break away from those, I guess, macro kind of economic factors in order to not be constrained by them. So I suppose it's difficult to compete with the price of labor in the Western market with the Eastern market. That's just a hard fact. So how do you differentiate? Well, perhaps you differentiate through high value manufacturing in the first place that requires specific expertise, applying a much greater level of automation, and you look at developing supply chains which are within your control. Now, I know that's easier said than done, particularly around electronics, but where possible, that's a strategic program to start to look at supply chain over a number of years to remove dependencies that perhaps leave you kind of exposed, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
From my perspective, it's about freeing up time for highly skilled, highly experienced people to focus on those bigger problems. And that, for me, is one of the beauties of digital technology, and in particular, the forthcoming AI craze. You want to be able to create time and space for your people to focus on your biggest issues. And your biggest issue is not necessarily getting purchase orders from a docket book written up and pushed. You want that stuff to be automated as much as possible, as seamless as much as possible, reduce the error, reduce the friction, so that your FD or your financial controller has time to think about how to optimize cash flow or how to reduce supply chain risk or whatever it may be. So I suppose, the beauty of the tools that we implement. And this is probably getting to one of your bugbears of around the word digital transformation. I mean, a lot of the work that we do gets classified under that banner of digital transformation. But in reality, for the majority of clients, we're not transforming anything. We're just helping them evolve from highly manual, highly error-prone processes into digital, streamlined, integrated processes that free up time for key resources to focus on the biggest issues.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the word that kind of comes to my mind when I think about this as well, is about, it's not through a lack of good intentions that people don't focus on these strategic challenges. It's because everyone's busy on the here and now. So I suppose one thing you're always trying to do with data and technology is bring control. It always comes back to control. If you can establish a level of control on your operation supported by kind of technology and data and try and remove variability, then all of a sudden you've got a much more stable foundation to start. Like you say, you're freed up from issues, firefighting, to start to look at the bigger picture. And I guess the beauty of establishing that control through data and technology is that gives you the foundation to be able to find much more interesting ways to look at and think about how you operate. So I suppose that's the beauty of, if you tackle one, by tackling one, you enable real innovation in terms of analysis and forecasting and modeling and simulation and the development of more adaptive systems within your factories. So again, it's about looking at that from an overall roadmap point of view and say, well, it sounds very far in the future, but actually by taking the steps we need to now to control our operation, we already start moving towards the capabilities we need to leverage things like AI as that becomes more prevalent in all industries.
So just to summarize up, Lawrence, what are your three main takeaways from anyone listening to this podcast if they're trying to get a hold of what they should do from a digitalization perspective within their manufacturing, engineering, or construction business?
I would say, don't worry that you're not doing stuff with AI. First and foremost, don't feel like, I suppose what I really mean by that is, don't worry that you've been left behind, because you haven't. And don't be concerned with the apparent complexity of data and technology. Fundamentally, it's like it always has been. It's, let's find clever ways to solve real problems. Data and technology just provides a mechanism to do that. And so if you are engaging the right people and stepping back and looking at simple problems of your business, you can start that move already. And as soon as you get into that process, you will naturally evolve your capability around data and technology and all of the benefits that can bring. So it's much more about evolution, not transformation, which I think we always talk about as well, is because that transformation almost seems like there's some sort of aspirational outcome that is almost unachievable, whereas actually it's just about stepping back, identifying the problems, doing the right things, and seeing where data and technology can help you do that. And that's just about bringing good people with different expertise together to do good work. And that's what we always try and do.
Coming up now, I'm joined by our head of data products and solutions, Deepa, to discuss using data transformation to accelerate your business growth. Deepa, you are really welcome to the Digital Manufacturer podcast, as it probably feels like it's been a long time, but as a recently new joiner to our team, I wonder if you might give the listeners a brief introduction to yourself, your background, the role that you perform at Rubik, and how you see Rubik helping our clients going forward.
Sure. So I joined Rubik about 4 months ago now as the head of data products and solutions. So essentially, a lot of my role is focused around helping our clients and achieve that end goal in terms of data transformation, how they use data and analytics in the best way to accelerate their businesses. And part of that, or a big part of that, is our internal data platform, which we are in, I'd say, very early stages at the moment. It is moving very fast. And this is essentially going to be a tool that will accelerate that growth and that digital transformation. So I think it's quite exciting times ahead for Rubik, and especially around the data products and services that we've got in store for this year.
And your experience, have you always worked in data?
Yes. So from very early stages of MI and data input, I've worked through the motions of data. So everything from analytics, MI, Power BI early stages, all the way through to BI development, and then managing teams both on kind of local and global scale.
And what are some of the data challenges that you see our customers struggling with today? Like why do customers need a partner like Rubik to help them transform how they use their data?
I think the biggest challenge for users is integration. And I think you see this regardless of kind of industry and size, integration is always going to be your biggest hurdle to overcome. That can take a variety of different shapes. So whether that be legacy systems, which we experience quite a lot in the industries that we work with, or whether that be the kind of resistance to change, new cloud technologies, things advancing a lot faster and a lot quicker than maybe the kind of businesses can cope with. A lot of the advancements around AI, ML can become quite confusing, especially if you've not got your data foundations in place. And I think this is where Rubik really accelerates, because we have that discovery piece. We talk to the customers, get to know where they are in terms of that kind of digital discovery spectrum. And then we take that in to recommend the solution that works for them. And I think that to some degree takes that almost like the anxiety away from it and that resistance to change out of it, because you're getting that kind of personalized approach, not just a one size fits all kind of approach that you get from the big cloud providers. And I think that's what really differentiates us and our experience that we can give to our clients.
And Deepa, one of the things that you constantly advising our clients on is data quality. Tell me a little bit about the importance of data quality and how getting that wrong could basically just ruin your investment in any sort of technology.
Yeah, I mean, data quality is a very big part of not just that data transformation piece as a whole, but it plays a big part in that integration piece and how we then use that data once it has been consolidated into a central platform of any sort of warehouse. But with quality, you've got to understand that what you put in has to be of a good quality so that it reflects on what you get out. And I think sometimes there is this feel that, oh, we'll sort it out when we integrate it. That's not the case. You know, we need to sort it out at source as best as we can, appreciating that some of this data is legacy and to some degree quite old. So moving that in, we can work with that. But I think one of the biggest things for me when we talk to clients and customers as well is they have to be the champions of their own data. They have to take the lead on data quality. And it's not just when you integrate it into a central data platform, it's at every stage that you're accessing data. Data is the lifeblood of an organization. It's pumped through every part. You need to be a part of that data quality exercise in every part of your kind of processes, the way you work, even as something as simple as emails you send to one another. The quality has to be there.
Brilliant. And in terms of the benefits of, I suppose, going through the pain or the struggle to get your data, high quality data in a single source, what are the type of benefits that we're seeing across our customer base that they're getting from going through this exercise of sorting out their data?
I guess the biggest advantage to it is going to be visibility. Having all your data in a central place, in a central repository, allows you to manage that data better. It allows you to understand what your data is telling you, because it's not just one part of that picture. And then you've got a swivel chair over somewhere else and say, well, what's this telling me? Everything is all in on one place. And the other side of it is their dependencies. So let's say something goes wrong or the price of something goes up, you are able to assess and understand that impact, not just on that one piece or one system's data. You can then attach it to all of the different parts of your processes and systems. And I think that is the biggest benefit that you can draw from consolidating your data. Obviously, it is dependent on your data quality, but as an overarching kind of concept, integration, consolidation gives you that visibility and the reliability that you're making your decisions based on all of your data being in one place.
I like that's the key thing for me, and it's the thing that I hear our customers talk about most, is that insights gained from data and reporting gives you confidence in the decisions that you're making. Like some of the times it will show you things that you aren't aware of, but most of the times it's confirming in black and white some of your gut instincts And that kind of supports you, particularly whenever you're in high growth mode and you're having to deploy a serious amount of capital or make decisions to enter new markets, or even acquiring other businesses and looking to put an element of fiduciary control over those. I mean, talk to me about how important it is for, like, we work with a number of group type businesses, how important it is for them to have a kind of centralized view of the truth of what's going on in their different divisions and subsidiary companies.
Yeah, I mean, that is probably more important than a single organization integrating into one place. With kind of organizations that have the businesses that have several parts to their organization, they are multiplying that issue of several systems, and they may not be the same systems across each area. Having that, not only their consolidated view, but then their consolidated view into that group consolidated view, is more so important, because you could lose that connection between those individual parts. And that's quite dangerous, because then you could make a decision at group level that could impact the lower divisional levels, which could impact them negatively or may not be in their best interest. And on the other side, they could make decisions that maybe don't match up to that group level. So it's a coordination piece more than anything at that point. It's ensuring that you are working in a synchronized way, and a way that works for everyone, not just for one area. And also from a data perspective, from a data consolidation perspective, making sure that you're sharing that data makes it easier to do that group level reporting and be able to track metrics and key performance indicators across all of the business, not just one area of the business. And that really allows you to understand where you are, not from a market, or not only from a market perspective, but from a full organizational perspective. You know, everyone is on that same page, working towards the same goals. And that's how you are going to deliver your overall KPIs, your company mission, your success criteria, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And it helps you unlock opportunities for synergies as well. I guess if I think about procurement or sales, having that single view across your group business allows you to identify where you could leverage your buying power or increase your cross-sell, upsell your customer base. In terms of the next steps when it comes to data, like you mentioned some buzzwords there as you were going through around ML and AI, so machine learning and artificial intelligence, and quite rightly called out the fact that there's no point thinking about that stuff if you don't have the right source of data from which it can be run. What do you think the future holds for our customers, so manufacturers, engineers, construction firms, if they get their data right? Like what is the long-term opportunity of leveraging some of that good technology if they invest in getting their data right today?
Well, I think that's the golden question, Mark. The possibilities are endless. If you genuinely, what you can achieve with AI and ML is amazing. It is always going to grow. It is that world of possibilities. But like I said, it's the data you feed into it that is really gonna deliver you that success. And one of the things, so obviously our platform will integrate a lot of this AI and ML capabilities, but at the level that will suit that particular company and where their data is and how that data is fed in. But on the same side, you can use your transform data, you can use that manipulated view of your integrated view, I should say, to really drive what that next level is going to look like. Predictive forecasting is within that, understanding where we are to where we were last year, all of that in terms of that sales comparison, leveraging those procurement advantages. That is just scratching the surface of what we can do. Some of the exciting things, and I'm not going to go into detail now because that is for a later day, but some of the things that we are going to get into will really improve our business processes, the way we do things, and transform how we see data right now as just being something to feed into decisions. What we are going to do is put AI and ML in the heart of some of these organizations and really change the way that they see and perceive data within a workplace.
Awesome. I love it. And so what would be your key takeaway for folks listening to this podcast when it comes to thinking about the importance of data within their organization?
The biggest thing is don't be scared of transformation. And I think that is the biggest thing when you talk about, I've worked with data for several years. And as soon as you talk about a digital transformation, a big project that's going to take several years, don't worry about that, because what it is, breaking it up into small milestones, smaller deliverables to take you on that journey. Embrace it, but you've got to be 100% in. You can't go at this half-heartedly, and seek that actual discovery piece, because actually you don't know what you don't know. And have a conversation with us, reach out to us, because actually we can show you what that data can do for you, even if it's a very small step to start with, and we need bigger things in terms of how your data is going to work for you. That first step is the hardest, but is the most exciting.
Deepa, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for tuning in to The Digital Manufacturer. We hope that today's conversation has provided some food for thought or sparked new ideas that will help you on your digital journey. To learn more about any of these topics discussed in the episode, head over to our website, www.rubiktech.co. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on your favourite podcast platform to help others join in the digital manufacturing movement. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a future episode. The Digital Manufacturer is brought to you by Rubik, where we're not just talking about the future, we're making it happen. On behalf of everyone at Rubik, thank you for listening.